Welcome to U.S. Foreclosure Institute, what the big banks don't want the little guy to know. This is an introduction to the affiliate program for U.S. Foreclosure Institute. Now, our goals for today is that we'll start with a brief introduction to the entire program. Then we'll take some time and really dissect and explain why and how we need to fight back against the banks and financial institutions. We'll describe the programs that are available to homeowners to be able to do that, and we'll explain how you can get involved and how you can earn money in the process. Now, let's start with a brief introduction, and let's start with what you probably already know. You probably already know that home ownership and home values skyrocketed in the recent housing bubble. You also probably know that the bubble burst a few years ago, sparking a devastating recession and decimating home values. You also probably watched as the government bailed out the banks and financial institutions, and in spite of that, you probably already know that millions of people have still gone on to lose their homes, and millions more are on their way to losing their home. In fact, the current inventory, most people estimate it's anywhere between 6 and 10 million homes that are somewhere in that pipeline of being on the road to foreclosure or in foreclosure. But you know what? Even dwarfing that is the number of homes. Millions of homes are vastly over-leveraged and have little hope of seeing equity in their home for many years to come. The worst part about all of this is that those who are in trouble with their real estate feel guilty, they feel embarrassed, they feel helpless, and they shouldn't. Yes, they made a choice to purchase a home, but it's not unsimilar to somebody making a choice to purchase a beautiful car and then finding out later that the seller of the car had rigged it to blow up down the road. You shouldn't feel guilty for it blowing up when it was rigged to do so from the very beginning. Now, that sounds like a bold statement, but that takes me to what you may not know that we're going to cover in this program. You may not know that both the housing bubble and its bursting were brought about by the financial institutions themselves. They had rigged the game. And if you doubt that, if you say, wow, that's a strong allegation to make, well, it's not me making the allegation. The government itself, in their oversight report, in the financial crisis inquiry report, and dozens of investigative journalists through newspapers and magazines have all found that the blame lays squarely on the backs of the financial institutions themselves. And we'll get into that today, and we'll talk more about how that is and why it is and what actually went on. Now, you also may not know that most mortgages are illegal. Why are they illegal? Well, again, all of these reasons, 13 different reasons. We'll go through a few of them. It's estimated that 90 to 95% of all mortgages have one or multiple of these issues going on that make them virtually not worth the paper they're written on. Most mortgages are not legal. Now, most of the big banks and financial institutions, despite all of this coming out, despite being sued and despite losing in court repeatedly, most big banks and financial institutions continue to operate in an unethical manner and even commit crimes. I'll share with you some just terrible stories. I mean, banks doing everything from lying to people all the way to the extreme of falsifying documents and committing out-and-out fraud. It's amazing what's currently going on in the financial industry. The Academy Award-winning documentary for last year was called Inside Job. It was all about the housing bubble, the bursting of it, and the fact that these financial institutions, in a rush to profit, committed massive fraud. And unfortunately, not a single financial executive has gone to jail for that. In fact, Charles Ferguson stood up and said that in his acceptance speech for the Oscar and got a standing ovation, because anybody that's seen the film will wind up angry and give him the same standing ovation. It's compelling facts that we will go through today on this call, and I encourage you to go watch the movie as well. Now, most of the popular approaches to solving real estate problems are not working, and when they do work, they're not advantageous to the property owner. It's kind of a door prize issue. Most people think they've got door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3 to go to, right? It's either a loan modification, a short sale, or just give the home back to the bank, either through foreclosure or a deed in lieu of foreclosure. But the bottom line is none of these are great solutions. Loan modifications, less than 3% actually get them. In fact, it's all the way down to about 2% now, and more than half of those, their payments are actually higher. Short sales, very small numbers, 20, 30% actually get a short sale achieved, low as 8 to 10% in some markets, and there's a big process involved. Foreclosure or deed in lieu of, again, you're losing the home. In all of these situations, in most states, you wind up with a deficiency judgment. There's no cash to the homeowner. In other words, they walk away with nothing. They have ruined credit. and they have to vacate the house with a lot of stress and anguish and everything else involved. These are not advantageous solutions, and yet most people, these are the only solutions they know. Well, couples are sitting around playing Monopoly. One person's reading the rules. He says, oh, short game. One player is named Banker. He wins. It's a sad state of affairs, but it's true. Unfortunately, the banks have been winning. The average person has been losing, and it's time to change that. What you also may not know is there is another solution. It's a time-tested solution. In fact, it's not only time-tested, it's built into the fabric of our American society. It was part of our Constitution. The framers of the Constitution understood that the law would not always be on your side, unfortunately. And consequently, they built a strong judiciary to give you the rights to be able to come back. In other words, if there's a factory upstream that's polluting the river and now the water source is all polluted and your kids are getting cancer, even if the law doesn't step in and do something about that, you have always had the opportunity to take that company to court, to sue them. And in fact, that is the solution. Unfortunately, you know, governments are generally not doing it through the law, but rather through the courts. Arizona sued Bank of America. Massachusetts has stopped all foreclosures by MERS. The government's new oversight agency recently filed suit against several large banks. Dozens of other states have filed suit or are seriously looking into it. You've probably followed the news. Investor group after investor group after investor group are winning huge judgments in court. But unfortunately, none of these things actually help the average guy down the street. There's no big class action suit or government action that's going to help the guy down the street that's about to lose his home. He's got to take the ball and run with it himself. He's got to pick up the pieces and sue the bank himself. And in fact, that's what we are giving people the opportunity to do through education. The reason most people haven't done this in the past is, number one, ignorance. Most people don't know what's happened. They don't know that the banks are at fault. They don't know what their options, their rights are. And that includes attorneys. There's not a lot of attorneys with tremendous expertise. Most attorneys that do have the expertise charge way too much for the average person. And you know what? A lot of solutions, a lot of the banks are settling left and right. $500,000 mortgages settled for $150,000, that kind of thing. They're doing it over and over again because they know they're in trouble. They know if it goes to court, they will lose in most cases. So the bottom line is there's great settlements that are happening, but that doesn't help the average person either unless they've got investors lined up, because the average person doesn't have the amount for the settlement. And then finally, even the good attorneys, the ones that know what they're doing, can't market in ways that would target people. It's against the law and the rules of the bar in virtually every state. So the bottom line is I've seen some programs where attorneys have affiliates out there marketing. Well, they're illegal. You can't go out and do that. So what we've set up is the perfect solution. And we're going to go through this in detail in a few minutes. 4 pieces of puzzle, independent pieces. The homeowner needs help. U.S. Foreclosure Institute steps in with the education that they need, and that education includes the referral services. We refer to U.S. Residential, an independent investment company, deep pockets, the ability to help individual homeowners through a variety of ways, not the least of which is negotiating and working with the best attorneys in the country to work on these cases for next to nothing. And in fact, U.S. Foreclosure Defense Law Group is the attorney group of choice, and they are some of the pioneers in this area, 20 years in the making. They've been doing this since before there was a housing bubble. And the bottom line is they know what they're doing. They also have, with U.S. Residential, they've negotiated some great opportunities to lower the costs of getting good litigation going. The long and the short of it is that there's 3 outstanding programs that we're going to cover. There's an owner-occupied program for the person that wants to wind up with cash from their home, but they want to stay in it during the process. There's the walk-away program for people that want cash from their home, but they want to walk away right away. And then there's a home protection program for people that want to stay in their home long-term. And all of these programs have been set up to be very affordable. The attorneys make a lot of their money on a contingency basis, and it's set up to be a great opportunity for people to be able to, bring the banks to justice, take them to court. Now, how does this help you? Well, we're also going to cover the ways that it does help you. U.S. Residential pays U.S. Foreclosure Institute for referrals, and U.S. Foreclosure Institute passes those referral fees on to its affiliates. So as an affiliate, you have the opportunity to educate people, refer business over to U.S. Residential for people that are interested, and you can get paid for that. We have affiliates that are making anywhere from $1,500 extra per month all the way up to $15,000 per month simply by educating people and referring them over. So that's the quick introduction. Let's get into the meat of it.